First hour of the morning intelligence report. I'm Koernke.
I'm Joe McNeil. Let me throw this out there. I don't know if this is a discussion or not. It's like I listened in all day yesterday, and there's somewhat of an avoidance to avoid talking about Trump, man. I want to make a point here this morning. We have been talking about Hillary the Hud, who isn't worth talking about. We've been talking about Obama, who isn't worth talking about. We've been talking about these two people, and of course others, for the past at least, no less than 8 years, and certainly Hillary longer than that. And now we have a new president that America obviously has chosen, who defeated all the evil whatever is going on, but he made it, okay? And he's working on keeping all his promises for America. Of course, somebody's already said, there was 18 or 20 promises, his campaign promises, and he's only been in office. He hasn't even been there for a week yet, but already they're bitching about, he's only done, 5 or 6 of those things. That's not what he said, okay? So now the ridicule comes. I want to point something out here. If we reluctantly, we're going to quit talking about Trump. I don't recall any time in the past 8 years when people were volunteering to quit talking about Obama or Hillary the Hud or anybody else. But somehow we feel because, we have this new champion or something that we can't talk about him. We can't celebrate the fact that, look, he's actually doing it. We can't talk about that for one reason or another. I've seen some posts, I have some Trump stickers, but I'm afraid to put them on my car. It's like everybody's afraid to mention that the fact that they might have voted for Trump, or hooray, Trump is headed he's going, man, he's headed in the right direction. No, we can't talk about those things. But we can sit here and talk day after day about the crap that we've been dealing with and have been talking about for the past minimum of 8 years. And I want to point out something here. If people are afraid to talk about Trump at this point and continue to show their support, what would you expect the man to get done? He doesn't have any outspoken support anywhere. We don't want to talk too much about Trump because we might be a Trumpy, or something along those lines. Which tells me that the propaganda, brainwashing, limited line of thinking, go nowhere attitude has been well ingrained into the people of America. And they will remain silent even though they might have a champion, maybe a God-sent man. It's kind of like the Jesus thing. They send somebody to save you, he's got all the answers, and we'll just throw rocks at him, or I get the doubt part. I get the question. I get the looking over your shoulder, not knowing what to expect because of all the crap that America's already been through when it comes to politicians and politics and healthcare systems. I get that part. But until we create some sort of a positive attitude or a positive atmosphere, or the positive American who's not ashamed to say, I'm not ashamed to say, hey, man, this guy's headed in the right direction. I'm not going to sit here and pick him apart because he only accomplished 10 out of the 20 that he promised. Sometimes you realize things will take a little longer. But he hasn't even been president for a week. And already the ridicule has started to go, what he promised. Well, I tell you what, I can get off the air forever. That's not a problem. But as long as I'm sitting in the seat and there's somebody that's doing the right thing, I'm going to support that person, verbally, financially, whatever it requires. And when somebody asks me walking down the street or I'm in a conversation somewhere, I'm going to tell them, yes, that's the man I voted for. And I think the guy's doing a great job. But to sit around and to reluctantly, well, we don't want to turn this into a Trump program or whatever. Well, hell, we had Obama programs, Clinton programs, and Bush programs. What the hell's wrong with Trump? Why is it that everybody might feel reluctant to talk about the man who could just possibly might be able to do something good for this country? We supported unknowingly, and we still do today, we still support Obama and the Clintons, and not so much the Bushes anymore. They did the right thing. They could just get out of the scene. And how we do that is we sit here and we continue to bring their names to the table. We continue to, write articles, talk about them on radio, and tell you, Obama. Obama's dead, I hope. The guy was a piece of crap, and everybody knows. Why does he deserve or she deserve to be still talked about continually? We already talked about him for at least no less than Hillary for the past 2 years. Why can't we talk about Trump? Why can't we do that? If you have an answer for what I'm asking here, give us a call, 208-935-0094. I just wanted to throw that out there this morning because, some of the things I think I'm witnessing, the Clintons and the Obamas they don't deserve to even be discussed. I'd like to say just erase their names from the books, man. Get rid of them. We're so tired of dealing with them. And if we're going to have a champion in this country, well, that champion needs our support on the streets, verbally, in conversation. And if he's doing something right, let him know that you approve. But to walk around in fear of, just think about that for a second. You can walk around, nobody's talking, but they'll get on that damn Facebook or their Twitter or, whatever little communication thing they got, and they might make mention, yeah, man, he looks like he's doing the right thing, but they won't say it publicly. So I'm going to say this publicly. I support the man that we have elected for president. I am taking a stand right now and pointing out the fact that we've wasted a lot of breath, a lot of time, a lot of research hours, a lot of everything that you can think of talking about the garbage. And I think that the good guy deserves as much airtime or thought or conversation as those before him. Or are we all here just to keep going round and round in a circle talking about the pieces of crap and all the damage that they've done? If this man can fix some of those problems, I don't expect him to fix it all. I don't know if he was in there for 12 years he could fix it all. There's a lot to get done. There's a lot of damage there in the past. It's not the past 8 years. It's the past 16 years at minimum. And we almost went to possibly another 8 years, and we kind of missed the bullet here, getting that lady out of the picture. So what would be wrong? I mean, we only have, like tomorrow, I suppose, will be his, well, today is actually his week. He was sworn in on Friday. So 7 days have passed. Friday to Friday is 8 days. So he's been there a week. And if all the reports are correct, and everything is going according to plan, or he's won the approval of somebody, let's give him a hand. Because he's the only one that I can think of that looks like he's doing or going to do or trying to do anything for America in the past 20 years. So why would we be reluctant? We Americans, we patriots, to talk about the man who has the power and is in the position to actually do something for America. So I just thought I'd throw that out there this morning, Mark. I think people need to get off the brainwashed program, the slave mentality, and start thinking about these things that are taking place right here, right now. You're living in a part of history. You're in the middle of it. You're not reading about it. You can't see the future. You are living it. So know what it is that you're living. Know where you are sitting in the history of this country. Because this, too, will be written down along with all the other crap that we just lived through. Think of it, man. Just think. Use your head, man. Why is everybody walking around with reluctance or afraid or you know, this is what we've been trained to do, to fear every day. No, man. Get your stuff together there and pull something together and start talking and say, hey, it's okay. He's doing the right thing. Instead of sitting around wondering, well, I don't want to start any arguments or anything. I don't know how that guy feels over there. It's not that you have to go out and get your bullhorn or anything else. It's just when it comes to the table and you hear it, praise it, man. Say it. It's a good thing. Like I said, the guy's only been a president for a week. And already, for the past 8 years, think about that. For the past 8 years and 16 years, all we've done is talk about, oh, look what Hillary's doing now, Obama, that piece of crap, you know, blah, blah, blah. Michelle's a transvestite or a converter, you know, all this is that, all their children isn't theirs, and, you know, all the garbage. You know, where did they get us? It took us nowhere. Now apparently we have somebody that might take us somewhere. Let's support that and talk about it. Anyway, that's what I had to throw to the table here this morning, Mark.
Just look at it as entertaining, if nothing else, and get involved in the game show. Okay, guys, here's how it works. The comment about, well, whatever he's doing is good, and he needs to do even more. So the game is early. The only problem I do have, and as I pointed out last night, the Comey has announced the FBI director isn't going to be fired. He gets to stay where he is. So
yeah.
The important thing.
Well, you know, I can see where we might have some disappointments here.
Well, there's more than no. Okay, no. This just tells me it's going to be entertaining. Let's have some fun with it while we're still buying ammo, sharpening our knives, and get ready to screw up, and then getting ready to mess up the fools who think that we're going to go to sleep. See, I argue I'm not asleep. None of us being fooled. We're just having a great time about this. Don't you think it's fun? I think it's fun. I've pointed this out many times, like even the last couple of days here. There's a few things that tell you that different people are going to get the money. How many of us knew there was an abortion clinic running down in Mexico City? That was a fake abortion clinic, by the way. It's a paper mill, not a abortion mill, guys. The reason it got shut down is because it was it was a kosher run operation out of Haifa and Tel Aviv. Okay, it was down in Mexico City. Now, somebody said, "Well, you mean there's Americans driving down to Mexico City for abortions?" Are you crazy?
No.
First of all, let's explain to you what was going on here. The Oi boys set up a paper mill office, a front company, guys. What he shut down was a front company. They had probably a really decent-looking building. They had a front office, and they had about probably 50 Mexican slave security girls, secretaries, typing 24/7 about all the abortions they were running, because you know what? It's in Mexico City. Who the hell was checking? And so it was like the third thing I asked Nancy when he signed this. See, there's a bunch of stuff they're not explaining when they're doing it. And it's like, well, this is to cancel out that Mexican blah blah blah. And it's like,
apparently they know about it.
Well, they knew about it, but you see what the thing is. If you watch, now they're doing this and they're not doing this, and that's another thing I have a problem with. It's really wonderful. They had one of the first things he signed. Remember, on the day of the inauguration was the bringing relief to everybody over the Obamacare thing in lieu of limiting Obamacare. It's going to be gone. He made kind of a statement. It's going to be gone. It's going to take time, do the paperwork, get it done. It's going to be gone. But he didn't say that much. He just said in lieu of Obamacare, and they said, well, where do I sign? And he signed it. Now, in the next battery, the next three batteries, there are 3 different executive orders each time. There's one in each one, where they were, on the one hand, they say, this is for such and such, and they make kind of an announcement, and they give it to him, and they sign it. But the one that jumped out at me, it's not the ones where they're, hi, we are signing this to get rid of Schmidlap bill. All of a sudden, it was like, here's that Mexican, Mexico City, it's like, what? What did he say? You couldn't, in other words, they're really clear, and then all of a sudden it's just one, oh, by the way, we're going to shuffle this in here. What it comes down to is it's a hack operation. It's like the Jewish mafia and making roads, okay? Or why it is the mafia always runs the garbage companies. And the only thing that happens is to switch out the books. Like, I'm going to tell you something right now. Garbage across America. Did you all notice how the companies have changed in the last 2 or 3 months across the country for your garbage service? It's because Bummer's group is leaving, and the new fake companies, the shill companies, have to be up. And when they tell you that, well, yeah, we dropped off 40 garbage trucks at our dump. 40 garbage trucks were dropped off, and well, you see, you put money back in the system you have with all your other drug deals and everything else. You launder it through cement and garbage. Now, here's the other thing: you want to steal tax dollars? You set an operation up in a foreign country, and then you have people filling paperwork out for people who's going to track down who's going to track down a woman who supposedly had an abortion in Mexico? Anybody? Do you see what kind of a rolling scam? We were paying for this. I guarantee that paper mill was running millions, if not $1 billion or more.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a Clinton connection there.
Oh yes, Clinton and the Israelis. It's an Israeli connection because that's what that's why they're not jamming on this. But what it is, it's the other guys. It's the Chicago Jewish mob. It's the L.A. Jewish mob, and those are the guys that are together on that. The new Jewish mob that came in, which is Trump, is New York mob, Murder Incorporated, the old Murder Incorporated crew, Meyer Lansky's crew. That's the Jewish operation that runs New York. Meyer Lansky's Murder Incorporated, and they're the ones that operate out of Tel Aviv also. So that's the group, okay? Murder Incorporated is the West mob, or forgive me, the East mob. Chicago is the old Al Capone gang. Capone was kosher. There's an old mafia guy down the road here. Big Louie. He's dead, long dead. He was mafia. Hoffa and everybody else used to shoot just down the road from us guys. And the guy was from Sicily, and he's sitting there, and we're looking at an Italian Carcano, and he looked at me and he said, just because somebody's from Sicily doesn't mean they're Italian. And then the other guys snickered, and they were laughing there, sitting there, because we were looking at this Carcano that was really dressed to no end, guys. And he goes, just because they're from Sicily doesn't mean they're Italian. Trust me. You got a lot of Jewish guys there. And it's like, oh, okay. So you see, that's one of the things that's going on here right now is that some of the stuff that they're doing, they're scrubbing out the competition. Bummer had 8 years to shovel God knows how much money to places that had no business going in the first place. So some of the stuff that you're first doing is cutting all those tendrils. I mean, figure it out. If that paper mill's running a couple billion a year, and who's going to ask any questions? Because who are the inspectors? Oh, bummers. Who are the people pushing the money here? Jewish mafia here in the system.
Yeah, what about the $200 million he shipped out the last few hours in office?
Right. Well, there's billions. No, it's actually billions, because there's a bunch of money that was shot in all directions, including Dubai, which, remember, is where Obama's got his little palace, and Hillary, the Hut, and good old Bill have one of their little palaces. So there's a bunch of chicanery, like we expected, and whether or not it's going to actually have the kibosh put to it, well, just because he transferred it technically, I got this funny feeling that if somebody wanted to put the stop to all of it, the magic pen could do that too. So we'll wait and see, because it's still got to go through Treasury, it's got to go through the IMF, International Monetary Fund. There's a lot of paperwork before it gets out the door, just like the paperwork you see for each one of these executive orders. I mean, he's got to have something printed by somebody and made up by somebody, and it's got to be spell checked, approved, and it has to be in the authorized format before it ever gets on his desk. And that takes time. That's what I said before this whole thing started. So like you said, guys, you just want him to sit down. What's he going to do, write on a napkin? He can't do that. Okay, so we'll allow for the idea it's got to keep doing the job. The perceived enemy of the American government is the American people, period. Not the foreign people, not all this stuff. Always remember that. Governments are like this because they're made up of people who want power. Okay, that's just the first rule. Never get upset about that. Understand the creature you're looking at, and understand the kind of creatures that always gravitate to these positions. Now, there's an advantage if they prefer to worry about how history looks at them. Sometimes you get a person who has a little more power in check, and that's a good thing. Or they're countering something, and while they still are going to throw some crap at you, you're just not going to get the whole outhouse. You have to suffer with some of the crap because it's the nature of the creatures that gravitate to power. Some didn't really have an ongoing career. This is the one thing about Trump that they have a problem with, is he's not a career sociopath from that direction. Now, he's into another type of sociopathy which has to do with business. If you're in New York and you're doing business with the shysters constantly, and he's married into the Jewish mafia big time. That's one thing we keep reminding everybody. Don't expect the sky, but understand that competition is good when you're the little people, and all the people who have lots of power and want to piss on you are busy pissing on each other because they're fighting for that power. Now, this is what our government, our system is all about, and that's not a bad thing. It's called check. This is something nobody's talked about for a while. Why do you think the founding fathers established a checks and balance system? And I don't care if you say, well, the Republic is not legitimate. The Articles of Confederation did the exact same thing. Don't you think so? Let's say that you believe in the Confederation. Hang on now, guys, we're talking about the Confederation that existed before the Republic that our country is founded upon. All of it is checks and balances. In other words, we're a bunch of little people. We know everybody understands. We've decided, we might get lucky. We might through how the bones fall. Notice I didn't say the dice. How the bones. I always love Willow. There's a little dwarf, the little short guy, wizard, and he throws the bones, and he goes, the bones. Yeah. Well, we'll call him the wizard. Nancy knows his name. I do too. It was just the wizard. Everybody recognizes the wizard, and he's throwing the bones down, and Willow's next to him, and he shouts out to the crowd, the bones will tell us. And he throws the bones on the ground, and they're both leaning in, and the kid that's next to him, he goes, the bones tell me nothing. Now, in reality, guys, see, that's the thing about this. We know we're going to get pissed on. Let's just accept that, okay? But we don't get pissed on as much when they're busy pissing on each other. And so, for instance, we have every step of the way with the Confederation, the Articles of Confederation, our Congress was supposed to get together. People with different factions of money, of power, of interest, had to vie with each other. Plus, they had a whole bunch of people underneath them who could walk up and put a sword, a hatchet, a knife, or a bullet in them any time. They couldn't buy enough protection. So Well, on the one hand, they could get away with a certain amount, which is really how people turn their brains off to government. Why they do? Because, well, as long as I'm getting a little doggy treat out of this, I've been telling you this for days. You know, we're going to get doggy treats, okay? Well, it's how it works. You know, we have the House of Representatives is ours. It's supposed to be ours. They're supposed to be listening to us. But first of all, there are a bunch of people called Federalists who wanted to undermine the whole check and balance system and create a government where the president signs all of the laws by edict. Hey, that's what these two guys have been doing most recently. Now, the Federalists, everybody was warned about them in another set of papers called the Anti-Federalist Papers. And this explained the whole problem with what would transpire, how things would develop if we allowed the creatures to have their way. Now, it's been a dog and cat fight every step of the way. The reason is because of the checks and balance system, which they really always piss and moan about. You want to know how they piss and moan about it? And now you're seeing it. We need to streamline things to save time. We need to just get it done fast. Now, two variations on this exist. One of them is what you saw with the Nancy, the crazy loon from California, Pelosi, or is she California? I don't care where the hell she's from, Pelosi. She gets up there, we don't need to read it. We just need to sign it. We just get it passed. Okay, so Pelosi, flaps your yap and tells you something about the crazy people that you're dealing with here. What do you mean you don't need to read it? What did you go to college for? See, so you've got the stupidity of the, it's not overeducated, of the indoctrinated, and, of course, a power freak coming at you from that direction. And then there's the, well, we can do it by executive order. Well, that's an imperial edict. That's what everybody warned everybody about with the federal powers and where they would go. Don't think so? Better still go read even the Federalist Papers. There was the debate, and they said, oh, no. The president would never get to rule by imperial edict with a presidential executive order because the Congress would stop that and the senators for the states would stop that, and no, they didn't. And here's the problem is, as I pointed out time and again, Congress on both sides had the ability to stop executive orders. When the Democrats were in, the Republicans would never stop them. When the Republicans were in, the Democrats would never stop them. So guess what? They kept doing this. Now, it's more important to understand that this vomit started in 1933 with the War Powers Act, an obscenity that should have taken us into an American Civil War to defend ourselves from the regime. And the people who need to be protected was us. But the people that need to protect ourselves in the final battle is us. We should have shot them in 1933. They counted on the idea first. They starved us. They did in America what Joe Stalin did in Russia. In 1929, the shyster bankers cut off the money supply, started starving the country. People didn't have anything because they expected the central money system to do something for them. It did. It pissed on them. We have the same centralist system right now. Now, whether or not Trump, and I will say this, and I won't hesitate to repeat it over and over again. We got Trump to buy the enemy time, not to buy us time. Trump is doing what he's promised to do to a degree, but part of the deal is he didn't have to go. See, Ronald Reagan had to travel to New York to meet Rockefeller so Rockefeller could tell him, you have to acquiesce and give us something and so you can be president. Reagan figured, okay, I'll do that, and then I'll sly-eye you and turn sideways. Once I get in, I've got the power, and I can keep it public, and you're going to have your feet put to the fire. Well, then the powers that be tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. While Reagan did not die, they were busy pushing all of his people out of office in his cabinet, and by the time they're done, George Bush took over. Reagan was there, but Reagan was completely isolated. Now, Trump's in the same situation. See, everybody assumed, something we talked about or we touched on the last couple of days here, see, everybody figured John F. Kennedy get a second term. Joe, did John F. Kennedy get a second term?
I don't believe he made it.
He didn't quite make it, did he? Why didn't he make it? What happened to him? Did he die of natural causes? Or, do we call lead poisoning in America for politicians who, kind of buck the system, natural causes? Now, I'm going to point out, guys, you see let me ask you all something. How many presidents have died because of assassination? Name them. I want someone to call in Well, see, here's the problem with that. You could cheat. You could be pulling up a computer monitor and actually run a log. I'm going to point out, okay, I'll do it this way because you don't have to worry about it. Well, how many presidents were assassinated? Well, Abraham Lincoln. Okay. Well, Kennedy. You mentioned Kennedy. Yeah, I did. Now I want you to list the rest that were assassinated. What? I want you to list the rest of the presidents that were assassinated by the Jewish ring knockers, because they wouldn't pass the Federal Reserve. Now, I can give you even a bigger hint. It's before 1913, but it's after the Civil War. I'll do one for you, because how many of you like, Joe, you like Johnny Cash, don't you?
I like Johnny Cash.
I love Johnny Cash. You ever watch Johnny Cash when he was on the air? I watched him. Remember, he used to be live on the air, and then some were live, some were canned, okay? Right. He used to do a whole battery of classic, songs that the people that were listening to him that were old country would remember. Some of them remember because we'd sit around in the house and everybody pull out their instruments. I think you grew up the same way, kind of, as far as, we pull out the instruments and we play music. And, the music of the past was much more people-oriented because most everybody had a guitar, had a fiddle, had, instruments, banjo, whatever. And everybody played something, the organ, the piano, right? Okay, because those were the instruments that we could get hold of. Okay, and we really, if you were proud if you had a piano, and really proud if you had an organ. Better the piano, the prouder you can be, too. Well, let me do something for you here, because I'm Johnny Cash. Back in the day, there was a woman in the White House, and a man came to the door. And he, of course, had a message for the lady of the house. And a young man and a young boy were standing there, and the young boy, he was talking to the man, says, "Why is the president's wife so upset?" And it went like this. "Mr. Garfield's been shot down, shot down, shot down. Mr. Garfield's been shot down low." How many remember that? Now, how did I have to bring that to you? How is it you don't know how many presidents are shot in the United States? How? Why?
Because the media didn't tell us.
Because the media and your schools didn't tell you either, because they're keeping up the stick. Miss Garfield's been shot down low. But Johnny Cash remembered one of them. However, during that period of time, he wasn't the only one. Now, I'm going to challenge you. Who else? I would point out that even good old Teddy, you might recall remember Teddy Roosevelt? Everybody's bragging up about this story right now because they always do this when you got the, Republican. I wouldn't consider George Bush anywhere near. George Bush is a big stinking liar across the board. George W. and his dad. They're turds that got a whole bunch of our friends killed for absolutely no reason, all except for greedy bastards in Israel who want to steal oil and our artifacts and money from Iraq. The turds, okay? But they bring up this story about good old Teddy, which we've talked about. It's part of the history where, he was on his way to a speech, and somebody came up and put a pistol and bullet in him, and, it kind of didn't do its job. And they were going to rush him to the hospital. He said, no, let's go to the meeting first and get this over with, and then we can go to the hospital after that. And everybody, of course, thought that Mr. Roosevelt was going to be there for quite some time and sit down for the dinner. And, he came in and he came up, went up to the podium, and he said, well, this speech is going to be a little shorter. And he goes, well, because I've just been shot, and let me give the speech here, and then I'm going to have to leave. And then he went out to the hospital and he had the bullet removed. Wow. So you see, there's been an ongoing series of wars. At the higher end, at the higher against the lower end, at the middle against the upper end, with the upper end against the middle and the lower end, and it's part of the ongoing struggle that is part of why we have the checks and balances in place. This will never change. You can prattle about how you're going to bring it to the proletariat or that we're going to do whatever, but here's how it works is there's a bunch of turds. They used to be called royalists. Somebody gets it in their brain that somehow their feces doesn't stink and yours does. And if you don't put a collar on them and put them in check, they will go apeshit crazy, just like the ones you're seeing right now. And they will generate ape crazy, like you see on the streets right now, because they understand social engineering and the power of pressure from below, pressure from above. And that's where we are. I like to see some of this stuff because, you see, let them beat the, this is why, my dad taught me this a long time ago. He was a police officer. And he wasn't one of those weighed in and, roided up knuckle dusters who want to get some punches in because he can get the roid rage off. He used to teach I watched this. He taught younger deputies, and he taught me a lesson. He said, when two big guys, bigger than you, are wanting to go at it, and they're all, drunked up or whatever. He goes, ain't a whole lot you're going to do. It may cause problems and do damage to people where they don't need it, because sometimes people need to vent off some steam, or sometimes, it's just dangerous for everybody. You don't want to kill anyone. You're supposed to be a peace officer. So what he'd do is, he'd get there, and there'd be these two guys going to town, and they'd be maybe beating on each other. Now, I pay attention to make sure no one's pulling a knife or no one's pulling some knuckles or nobody's, got something like they can beat on somebody for an unfair advantage. They might stop that. And there would be typically, why don't you put that down and get back to an honest fight? And he'd wait, and the young kid that usually was there would be all pranced up. Oh, we got to get in there. We got to get in there, which are the dimwits you always see on these videos nowadays. We got to get in there. We got to wade in. It's like, no, just hold on. And he'd let the guys get their, their licks in. And when he'd walk up? He'd walk up when they were so tired, Joe, that they were crawling on the ground trying to swing at each other like a couple of 2-year-olds. Yeah. And he'd walk in, he didn't have to fight them, didn't have to wrestle with them. Are you all through now? Are you all through now? And they'd be like, and they were looking for someone to intervene because they all both got their licks in. They're all bleeding. They're both tired because he'd be crawling under the cars after each other, dragging themselves along. He'd just have to walk over and grab them by the scruff of the neck and drag them apart a little bit. You all done? You all done? Now, do you all set? You all okay, good. And nobody went to jail. Nobody went crazy with a billy club or taser or shooting somebody. He says, now you're all happy, you're all satisfied. Now you all shake, or, here, we can't handle that because you look like you're a little tired. Why don't you take a little breather here? And, my deputy's going to sit with you. Why don't you come over here and talk to me? What's going on? See, that's how a peace officer works. But then you've got the loon, nutcase, Fruit Loop, crazy as the day is long, batshit, insane enforcers. We used to have peace officers. We used to have a form of government that was good. We didn't write executive orders to negate our entire political system and our form of government, but that's what goes on now. And we are being conditioned to believe that that's acceptable, and it is not. Now, we'll suffer with it but here's the lie. Here's what I believe personally the lie is going to be. They've set a precedent now for massive, illegitimate law. Bummer passed a bunch of massive, illegitimate law, and we all complain. Another guy comes in and passes a bunch of illegitimate law that's unacceptable, and we're cheering. Now, I agree with the idea that he's doing the right thing to get rid of the illegitimate law, but this precedent set is like the idea that Kenyan should ever have been in there in the first place. Not because he was a black man. This has nothing to do with it. They brought an absolute foreigner in, who with a fake ID, and put him into the highest executive post, which tells you one of two things. Either that post doesn't mean anything anymore and is totally irrelevant, or it was the internationalists trying to shove this garbage down your throat that Americans don't matter and that the royalty are the royalty and should only be lording over us and no one else. Which is it? I'm talking about Bummer. Bummer's a total fabrication. Bummer's a person that we don't even know who the hell he was. We don't really know who he is now, and he could fade away very easily because of that. But Trump, we know exactly where he's from. We know who he is. Now, he's a counterpart or a juxtaposition to the other turd, but he's also a person who's been riding with a whole lot of people who are the enemies of America. In fact, the people in New York City are mostly the enemies of the rest of New York. Does everybody know that and understand that? The rest of New York wish that New York City would drop off into the Atlantic, or that they could carve them off from their state so that parasite wouldn't be there. Mr. Trump is from that location, where everybody else wishes it would go away. So, for everybody, this is where we live. We're living the times that we got. Now, I say we enjoy in the process. Clap and laugh when they beat on each other, because you can't get a lick in from the side here, so somebody's able to monkey poke or kangaroo fight, or maybe it's like those two jackrabbits on that latest video everybody's passing around, where they're kind of monkey poking at each other, tappa. Maybe it's fiction. But while we're busy sharpening our bayonets and reloading magazines and buying more ammo and buying more guns, we can chuckle at the rabbit fight, can't we? I say we enjoy ourselves and still get ready to gut them. We're that third group, the thinking Americans that plan on being around a long time, and we really are patriotic, not because it's a trend or cyclic, but because we really believe in our form of government. And no matter what these characters in these high places think, we're not forgetting that. All of us, we all truly believe in our form of government. We plan on enforcing it. So pickle smoke, mirrors, and whatever else pixie dust you throw out there ain't going to do any good. It's fun to watch right now. But let's hold them to the fire. Let's hold them to the fire every step of the way. And when they deviate, we're also going to point that out because, well, actually, Joe, there were promises made. And I expect these promises to be kept. I think everybody does. Now, we'll give them time because it takes time. It takes time to print the garbage. God bless our republic.
Death to the New World Order.
We shall prevail, ladies and gentlemen. The empire is on the run.
And we're on the march night and day.
Hoorah. And that abortion clinic, I'd like to talk to some of the people who were serviced there. Can't do that. Foreign country. Money poured into it by the buckets. We don't know how much they stole from America through that shill operation, guys. Hey, at least he put the kibosh to that for the moment. Maybe they got another one in Dubai. Who knows? We'll be back. And that's right. God bless our limited constitutional republic. Everybody remember the proper title for this nation? We don't shorten it. It's a republic, but a limited constitutional republic. Imperial edicts and executive orders are not the law of the land that is acceptable to a people who wish to be free. So use it, and the last statement should be, and by the way, we've canceled the use of any executive order. It will be destroyed and no longer in service. When we do talk about all these guys that are in politics and how we back one or we support the other, or we're not going to, whatever we're going to do, if they don't have support, if we don't stand up and voice that we believe, then people that are your opposition feel emboldened and they will do harm to you and or do harm to the person that's there that, may be of like mind. Now, the balance is this. We do not follow blindly and in ignorance anyone. There seem to be a lot of people who like to do that on any side. It has always fascinated me that there are people who even, they have the ability to articulate, but then immediately shut their brain off because Trump said, or Bush said, or Obama said, or whatever. Even the guy that got shot there many years ago, Teddy Roosevelt, he pointed out something, and of course now how serious he was about it, because there's arguments. We know he was a Roosevelt, okay, but there are comments that are made that are interesting. Maybe he was trying to direct it in another way to change energy and power towards him for whatever reason, obviously the least of which is, well, he wanted to be president. But, one of the comments he made is that, you do not blindly follow the government, but rather question it wherever it's necessary to do so. Because, again, we love our country, but we know full well that a government can betray us. It can go south real quick. Now, the Founding Fathers could have, actually, they couldn't have done it in 1778 through the, 1890s. They could not have just thrown a monarchical system back on the American people. That's one thing everybody must remember. There were people who wanted to. There were people who thought, we'll have a King George, but he'll be called George Washington. We're going to have, they could implement, Hamilton. This is why I have no problem with them having shot Hamilton dead. Why? Hamilton was an illegitimate child of a monarchist out of England. He went to the Caribbean to ply his trade to try and make a name for himself so he could gain wealth, so he could make the title work for him. Now, until a bunch of his other, siblings that were, by whoever the mother was that the guy was married to died off, he wasn't going anywhere. But he was still in the pecking order. When he got here, the logic was that they could pump up and build the monarchical system here. Well, wait a minute, weren't we in an American war for independence? Yes, we were. But you see, there were some people who were thinking they were just going to plug that whole monarchical thing right in again. And when everything was said and done, but it would be their little piece of the pie over here they could divvy up with all of us being in chains. The problem with that is the Americans had made up the people who fought the Revolution. A lot of them were Scots. A lot of them were Irish. A lot of them were Germans. The Germans were, typically from the Lutheran vein. Guys, you might remember what we call Lutherans. They're called Protestants. What is the term Protestant? What's the root of it? Protestors. Okay? All of them had been pissed on by the Catholic Church and by the Church of England at one point or another, which is why they all ended up on this piece of real estate. On top of this being a Christian nation, I'm going to point out something that some of our listeners aren't going to like because, wow, we got a big Catholic population here. This was a Protestant nation. Oh, I just curdled some other people's toes. Not going to like that. A protesters, a Protestant nation, which is why we had to keep the states intact. Want to know why? Because we had a bag of cats even then. Why do you think we had different colonies? Now, granted, it also had to do with business, but that business was based on how could they take a big block of people and send them off to the equivalent to Botany Bay, the colonies in the New World in North America, and dump them off and get them out of the way, but in the process use their energy to gain wealth for the crown. It created these colonial states, these colonial nations, the colonies. The natural division of people that existed based upon their tribal tendencies as religious or as nationality goes is why the colonies proceeded into states. Does everybody understand that? Now, because we all had different positions and beliefs and differences, and there were more churches here than anywhere else, which all the Frenchmen who came over said, "Suck the blur. Wow, look at this. You guys got all kinds of people around here with all kinds of religions." Yeah, but mess with us, we'll all kill you. Hell, even the Quakers will pitch in. And that was tough to get going. Think about that. Why? Well, because even the Quakers could remember when they were burned at the stake, or they were beat to death, or they were stabbed or shot, and their villages would be surrounded, and every man, woman, and child would be exterminated by the crown of one country or another, where the Catholic Church would order the burning and the execution of Protestants by the bucket, by the thousands. When the Huguenots, anybody know the history of the Huguenots? The Protestants, when they were in France, were persecuted and executed in mass quantities by the Catholic Church. Many of those Protestants were able to escape or were able to buy their way or were put here and sold as indentured servants into the colonies. When you get over here and you start breathing clean air and you realize there's open terrain, and then they put all of these people of like mind in the same place, that was the perfect formula for a fight for liberty. Oh, that was a screw-up. So at the end of the American War for Independence, while the monarchists may have wanted to try and plug their little monarchy scam in direct, they couldn't. And so a series of compromises take place. During the war, we had a government. That government was the Confederation. It was designed as a wartime government to create compromise amongst a bag of cats who had a common goal, which was to embrace and keep their liberty. America has forgotten this because the teachers aren't going to teach it, because it used to be part of our history. to understand what kind of god-awful mess we came out of and what we created with it. Never perfection, because man can't create perfection. Now, all you protesters/Protestants seem to have gone so loony in the head, you run around with, women's organs on your head. If, in other words, there's a spiraling down, but it's because outside influences of the other factions that we warned everybody about have gotten into our education system, have totally permeated our government, and utterly ruined its potential. And while we are carving away at all of the brambles and the bamboo and the wiry, nasty weeds, we still have to tend to the main tree, and it needs to be watered properly, and it's not been watered for quite some time. As Jefferson would say, there is a natural manure that will help to breathe life into the tree of liberty, and it ain't a stinking feather bed. Okay?
Blood of tyrants and patriots alike.
Yeah. But the people who came here how many hundreds of years ago understood full well and had experienced the kindness of the Catholic Church, or the kindness of the Church of England, which the Founding Fathers, by the way, would say in a heartbeat could just easily have flipped itself right back over and gone back to the Catholic Church. There are many other factions and elements that we are in contest with, and all of them are old. It is true that we're the young body. Because we're the young body, though, we should have the spry brain and the sharpness to be able to continue to exist, where the others have become sluggish. But they are consistent, and they are always oppressive in their ways. That's the oppression that's being put down upon us with pressure from below through stupidity, ignorance, avarice, greed, envy, by stupid people who, like I've said, I envy nothing that my enemy has. In fact, I can't say I pity them. I would be the first to step on their toes or their fingers and shove them over the edge into hell. That's why I'm a hawk. Won't hesitate to say it. Why should I be embarrassed about that? They're not embarrassed by anything they say. Oh, we got Fruit Loop Balloon occultists out there dancing around bare butt naked, people. What the hell happened to your spine? We are in the middle of what is an interesting change, and we should take advantage of it and press forward in every way that we can. But especially, we do not sleep right now. And we don't go, Trump's in, we can rest. Trump's in, we put his feet to the fire and we kick him in the ass every step of the way. If he lies, we catch him in a lie. If he's honest and good, we'll point out that, hey, at least he kept that promise. But this is America. We expect performance. And if we don't see it, we are going to tell you about it. Now, you got to, first of all, get in the race, though. So the race has begun.